Hello, everyone. Welcome to our usual Sunday afternoon kitchen table talk. With us, as usual, is the panel. Thanks, everyone, for showing up. It's good to see everybody. We've got some people from Nova Scotia. They've just gone through Hurricane Lee. We've got tons of things to talk about. And I mean, MC's here, Ryan's here, Ron's here, Bill's here, Scott's here, and Peter's here. Kenzie's here, too, and Max and Noel. And I feel like romper room a little bit that time. But it's good to see everybody. It's been too long almost. I've been missing it all summer, and we just had last week. And I can't believe how fast things are changing. The speed at which there's new news, like with regards to the COVID stuff, the vaccine stuff, the housing stuff, the gender ideology stuff, what's going on. It seems like we're being bombarded constantly. And while you're being bombarded, your money's being devalued. And well, I mean, your government's shoveling money out the door to Ukraine. And it's just crazy. So I feel like my head is spinning. I want to start at gender ideology. I want to start at what's going on Tuesday, the organization of the counter protest, which is crazy. The other day I was talking to Billboard Chris. He blocked me because I questioned him policing what his people who follow him are going to protest with. He said, no upside down Canada flags, no F Trudeau flags, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, hey, like, what's going on with that? Why aren't you about free speech? Because this is fundamentally a speech thing. And he blocked me. So that's fine. But right on the heels of that happening and Chris trying to organize, and Chris and other people trying to organize this protest, we got the CUPE release yesterday, talking about how the counter protest is being organized to a point where they have CUPE employees on work time talking about how to organize with their comrades. And I watched all of that. And I don't know if you guys have seen the CUPE meeting, but they were talking about having spreadsheets, organizing specific counter protests, using CUPE mailing lists and CUPE communication resources in order to maximize getting people out. I think I said this already, but they were calling each other comrades, and they were saying basically these parents don't have a right to protest this way, and we're going to use our resources to undermine their ability to protest. And I thought it was completely nuts. I thought it was absolutely the craziest thing that I've ever seen, and it feels like nothing's going to get done about all of this. You know what I mean? Ryan, let's talk about it. What's up, man?
Yeah, I just finished watching it a couple hours ago. And yeah, they were talking about taking pictures of license plates.
They were. Yeah, specifically in Hamilton. They were saying they had organizers who had already volunteered, people who have experience with going and finding license plates and taking pictures of these license plates. So this is, I mean, people who are saying, well, I don't think that we should be harming our children by telling them they can change gender, or, supporting mutilating children behind parents' backs and all this other stuff.
Right there, yeah.
They're going to protest this, and then they're being doxxed by CUPE. Like, how is that sane? Like, how does that make any sense? That's crazy town, right?
Well, yeah, even when they're talking, I couldn't believe, like, they would use the word racist and
yes,
Nazis and everything.
Yes, anti-trans, anti-queer.
Yep. And like when they were also talking about taking pictures of people, trying to get people's names and
yes
and stuff like that, and their emails, and they want to go right full force out there. But I'm thinking there's going to be a lot more people against mutilating children.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah,
Like,
I think
there's more people that are on that side, and I hope they get their message across. Is what people want, their parents want, is their kids not being mutilated or drugged up with puberty blockers or what that stuff.
Yep.
And have a law saying, okay, at 18 years old, when you're an adult, you can do whatever you want.
I don't know about that.
Just leave
because,
the
like,
children.
if I leave the children alone for sure, but if I walked into a doctor's office and I was like, listen, this hand right here, this hand is no good for me. I don't think it's my hand. I disassociate with this hand. I'm a one-handed person. I identify as a one-handed person. I think it would be irresponsible if the doctor cut that hand off. I think if the doctor was like, okay, man, like, yeah, let's cut that hand off. Let's get that thing gone. I don't think just because you're an adult, we should start playing games like, if you cut off your penis, you become a woman. That's a lie. That doesn't happen. Like, if you cut your penis off,
I absolutely agree with that.
you're a man with a penis or without a
Yeah.
penis.
Yeah. But the thing is, there's got to be a law put in place so that children aren't doing this, so that at least they grow up.
Isn't there? I think that there's precedent
right?
in the legal structure that says, and it's not sexual organs, but there was a movement in the early 2000s where people identified as being disabled, and so they wanted to have legs amputated because they had then access to the disabled benefits because they were actually disabled because they didn't have a leg, for example, right, or an arm or something like that. So they wanted to get these things, and so a doctor actually did it, and then he lost his license for doing it. Right. And so, like, I think we have laws on the books that say you can't do this, but we're doing it anyway.
Doctors aren't losing their licenses.
But that's the problem.
Right.
They're losing their license for giving mask exemptions and exemptions for vaccine mandates. Right. They're not losing their license for mutilating children. Right. They're being celebrated for this as delivering gender care or whatever nonsense they want to call it.
Has to do with money. All
cash money.
They're getting paid big. Yeah.
Yeah. You're not wrong, buddy. You're wrong. Thanks, Ryan. Ron, what do you think?
It's going to be big. There's a lot of women out there that want to protect their children. And like I have family that's kind of finally stepping out of the boundaries. And
they've become Trump supporters.
No, I'm not even a Trump supporter, but the blue steel look, right? Like, he's the father of the vaccine. Indeed. So, but this, I couldn't deny. And then
I can't wait till the book comes out. I can't wait till 2050 when the book comes out, and like we learn what happened and Trump says like it's the best coup ever, right? It's the best coup.
Well, I'm a Back to the Future fan, so him being the best president ever in like the museum, Back
to the Future too, right?
Back to the Future, the time traveler, his son, Baron, the connection to his son Baron, and then even his uncle, was his great uncle, shutting down Tesla. We can't talk. We have to get back to the my sister's very involved in this, right? She and my brother-in-law, he's like, she's taking my kids out of school to go to this protest. So it seems very, but the slogans, right? It's very sloganized. There's women involved. They want to protect their children. People are taking the license plates. It seems very like an operation, right?
It does seem like an operation. It does seem like an operation. So, okay,
reeling in more people.
To a degree, it feels like an operation or a honey trap. Like, if you go here, like, go to this meeting, and then they're going to take your license plate down, and they're going to be like, you're added to the list. What list? The list that we're all on.
The list, right?
The list, you know? So yeah, I think that's interesting. I think I want to come back to what you're talking about, the sloganeering and all of the other stuff. I want to talk about like what happened with Billboard Chris, because that kind of ties into the slogans and stuff. But I want to get to MC and Bill first, and then we'll come back. Okay. So remind me if I forget, please. MC, what's up, man?
Well, what a bunch of mediocre pieces of, like, imagine that you wake up and you're like, okay, here we are descending into this evil empire and stuff, but I've got my role as a very minor official. As long as I can keep the millions of other people down, then I'm set. Like, yes. Holy cow. Mm-hmm. And that's why we have to fight so hard about all this, because before this descent into tyranny, it seems to me our society was predicated on the idea that your station in life, to a larger degree than anything else, depended upon your own effort. Like, yes. Slings and arrows of outrageous fortune aside, if you tried, you could do stuff, right? And now this is what it is all about to me, is stopping these people that are coming along and saying, it doesn't matter how hard you try, we're just going to block you if we don't like what you have to say.
Yes.
It's
to give you to kind of break it down, I was talking today on my show about the affordability crisis and the rest. And it used to be in Canada, like if you try, if you take a risk and it pays off, then like it's a free country, you can make all sorts of money and it's great. And you know, that's the benefit of taking that risk, is it might pay off, right? And people will do that. And so like if you buy a house and you think to yourself, the rental market looks like a pretty lucrative place to, you know, make my money, and you have 5 or 6 houses, right? You could do that in the not 80s, 90s, right? In the 1990s and in the early 2000s, maybe not the 1980s, but you could make a go of it. And you could, if you wanted to start a restaurant, you could be like, well, food's cheap. Maybe I'll just make food and that'll be the thing that I do, right? And start a restaurant. And then, you know, you take a risk and it pays off. And so then you make a go of it. But now food's not cheap. Housing's not cheap. There isn't a way to try. It's better to play victim and get the money from the government, because the government's saying everybody's a victim. You're a victim, you're a victim, you're a victim. And here's your victim money. And like they're incentivizing victimhood rather than incentivizing hard work. And I think they're trying to change the fundamental agreement of like, we will offer, the fundamental agreement used to be, we will provide a situation where it's safe, people can use the roads, they can get to your store. We will provide a tax structure that is beneficial to you and us. You'll make lots of money and we'll take a little bit of money. And people seemed okay with that. They'd start businesses, and that was the agreement, right? And now it's capitalists are bad. If you're a business, you're dodging taxes, you're somehow, you know what I mean? Like Trudeau hates small business. And there's this very different kind of outlook on production, despite the fact that the government relies on taxes, relies on all these businesses to make money, to make sure the government has money to waste all the money in Ukraine, right? It's such
they don't rely on taxes anymore, though, really, right?
Big pharma, yeah.
They just send out money. Like they don't need our taxes anymore. Like we're not making a dent, right, in what they're sending out. It doesn't matter. And this is what it is. It's like, okay, you can operate, but then we'll whimsically come along and change the rules so you can't operate.
Right. Well, I mean, look at Skelly and his barbecue, right? Adamson's barbecue, right? Like, sorry, you can't operate now because COVID.
They're like the Emperor and Gladiator.
Yeah, the bad one, Commodus. Commodus. Yeah, for real. And it is very disconcerting to see. Well, I mean, when you incentivize victimhood and you disincentivize production and actually making things that people want to buy, like Skelly's barbecue or whatever, and you crush those things, then you're going to get less of that and more victimhood. You know what I mean? Less of those movers and shakers and more victimhood. And that's bad.
Yeah. Well, and going back to what Ron said, is a woman protecting her kids stronger than a man who thinks he's a woman? Because that's the government officials they're going up against this weekend.
Is it an arm wrestle that we're dealing with?
I hope it's live.
Oh man, I think they're gonna. I'm sure they're gonna stream
entertained.
Yeah, Bill.
Yeah, again, as I said in the past, what we're seeing here with everything that's going on, the foisting of the transsexual, Nazi, whatever, all this other stuff, the victimhood stuff. You had that one Twitter or X post there on your show today about the descent of Venezuela from say the early 90s till now. And I've brought this up in the past to most of the people that I know. We're well on our way. And we've seen this at the turn of the 20th, well, just before the turn of the 20th century, with Marx and everything else, but the Bolsheviks and then the Chinese communists.
Yep.
The pushback, you're absolutely right. And MC has just nailed it, that people need to get up on their hind legs and go out to these things. And they're going to dox you. Okay, go ahead, take my license plate down. I could care less. Come to my house. Protest out front. The front needs watering as well. So I'll just come out with the hose, and you got in the way of my hose. Oh,
yeah, sorry.
I'll whip you with the damn ball. Yeah. I wouldn't do that because I don't.
Well, you don't want assault charges.
Violence, but you know what I mean. Push comes to shove. There's a bunch of bony, I'll say it, shit rats, and people who maybe should practice some self-control and watch their health and their diet. these are the people who, again, thrived on the whole victimhood mentality that was really strongly perpetuated in the late 80s, early 90s. The whole goth thing and everything else. Was it pushed by somebody in the back room? Well, absolutely. Our entire society is run by the Wizard of Oz now. You know, flying monkeys everywhere.
I saw, this is kind of unrelated, but similar, like in the same vein. I saw a video talking that had a whole bunch of music guys in the rap world, older though, right? Like Run DMC and before that even, talking about how there was a meeting in the early 80s and they were going to change rap and they were going to make a lot of money, but people were going to be, you know, going to jail, but it was going to be like the face of rap, and they were going to be promoted, like these songs, these kind of songs are going to be promoted. And then they started doing the same thing in country music. There's a song called Stay in the Truck, and it's about a guy who comes across a girl, and the song talks about how like it looks like she's been beaten up and everything, and like without, without verifying anything, the guy, like, he drives back to her place and goes kills the guy, and he does and he goes to jail for murder, but it's like he's white knighting her, and it's like,
and that song just went platinum.
Oh yeah, people love it. People love it.
And I know exactly what you're talking about, seeing it in country music too.
Yep.
Right. Look what it's all about.
They're trying to make country music more pop, and they're trying to,
turn it.
And it's terrible. It's terrible. Like you get some really honest country, and it's really good. But
like those conversations,
blues, right, or rock, or anything along those lines. Corporate music versus organic, like. Well, you play guitar,
Anthony Oliver.
You know, I attempt to play a slide once in a while, but
that's tough. Good job.
What's that?
That's difficult. Slide. Yeah, I could never get the feel for it.
Well, if you got big mumbly pigs like me, I have a hard time doing speed riffs. So
fair enough.
Anyways, but that whole thing, the whole corporate media thing, radio stations. Remember the payola scandals back in the early days of rock and roll and all that. Everything is run from a back room.
Yeah,
there are things that are organic, but not
DJs. When music was run by local DJs, music was organic, and then people realized, holy cow, these charts can really influence people.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, I want to stay back on the schools, because we can easily get off topic. But I want to stay back on the schools. So I want to talk quickly. Max, am I going to derail you or no?
I was just gonna say that the situation, like the meeting of the rap artists, is very similar to like how punk rock was all co-opted.
Yeah.
And like it was never about fighting the system, because the system was always backing it. Like the whole idea and like the stereotype of like the punk rock phenomena was always the greatest lie, like in like rock and metal, which is what I find fascinating. And I didn't want to take away from that, but that's all I want to say.
No, it is very interesting. And like, I think it all ties into control, you know, influence, if not control, then influence. And being able to kind of set the tone of things, right? And like when you've got an entire world encapsulated by Beatlemania, right? Like that's powerful. You know what I mean? So, and I mean, we now have Beatlemania every freaking day. You've got a viral meme that's Beatlemania. Everybody gets it. You know what I mean? Like it's pretty wild. Okay, so I want to talk about the sloganization, and like, you guys were talking about how there's a lot of people who are like, the organizers are very, I don't know if it's well organized or what, but there's a lot of women involved, you guys are saying, and that's going to change the timbre of this. So Billboard Chris was saying that he didn't want the F Trudeau flags there, and he didn't want upside down Canada flags there. And I saw his tweet on this, and I scrolled by, and I was explaining this in the green room before the show started, but I scrolled by, and I was like, no, I want to ask him, because like, that seems antithetical to his whole purpose. Part of the reason, and not necessarily Billboard Chris's whole purpose, but the reason this protest is happening on Tuesday, or on the 20th, is partially due to Josh not being allowed in school. Is it Josh Alexander? Not being allowed in school because he said the God created man and woman, and that's it, period. And so if Billboard Chris doesn't like the F Trudeau flags and the upside down Canada flags, what about Josh's red hat that says Save Canada, that looks like a MAGA hat, right? Like, it seems antithetical to the core of the message. Now, Billboard Chris himself wears, you know, children cannot consent to puberty blockers and that kind of stuff. and he got mad at me because I was pushing him on defending free speech. Like, what happens if a supporter, and I mean, like, I live close to rural communities. I drive around, I see people who just have F Trudeau flags flying on their truck. He got upset with me, and I was just saying people express themselves differently. And so telling people not to bring these things kind of eats into a core charter right and is kind of antithetical to the whole idea of protest. Like, if you want people to come and support you, they should be able to express themselves however you want. Further, during the Freedom Convoy, the media showed up with what's it called, Confederate flag, and that was blamed on the media, by the media, on the Freedom Convoy. Anyway, they didn't have controversial flags. They had F Trudeau flags, and the media didn't care. They had Canada upside down flags, and the media didn't care about that either. And so instead of arguing to a degree where I felt satisfied with that, he blocked me. And I thought that was weird. I thought that was a weird response. It certainly wasn't how I expected the conversation to go, but I mean, it is what it is. But I thought it was really strange. And I think that it's interesting how if you get a slogan that works, they're going to make it like "Make America Great Again," right? If you get something that works, they're going to try and demonize it. If they don't get something to demonize right away, they're going to dress somebody up and put a mask on them and walk around with the Confederate flag and say, look, they're racists, like we said, because they make it so, and not because it's true, right? So, like, why kowtow to these terrorists? I don't understand. I just didn't understand. And I thought it was a bad strategy. If you want to derail our protest, show up with an upside down Canada flag. Okay, I guess. Like, seems weird. And I mean, like, I'm not going to go, I don't have an F Trudeau flag, right? I'm not going to go and mess up Chris's thing. That wasn't why I asked him. It just seemed antithetical to the whole promise of Canada to start policing people's protest materials. It just struck me as weird. Okay, Ron, let me have it.
It's tough. I don't know where Chris lays, right? He's done so much good work.
Yeah.
But the free speech thing is at the core. So you're absolutely right, and I get his point. He's a corporate guy.
Yeah.
So
they're saying hearts and minds.
He's looking at branding.
Sure.
And he wants to bring more people into the movement, and that's my best take on it, right? He wants to bring more people in.
But again, the Freedom Convoy, and I mean, I don't mean to have the argument with a stand-in or anything to that effect, but this, to me, the Freedom Convoy had the F Trudeau flags, upside down Canada flags, and all sorts of other stuff, and they garnered a huge amount of support, a massive amount of support. Nobody was focusing on that.
So I watched a video from Druthers this morning, and Trudeau was in Hamilton, and they interviewed a bunch of guys, and the video was like laden with like cussing and swearing, right? So to bring in the normal family person to watch the video, they would have shut it off right away. Like, so I kind of have empathy. Like, I understand where he's coming from, but that's why I agree with you. Like, at the crux of the movement, it's free speech. It shouldn't be branded. And Chris has had other reasons and who he's banned that I believe that are very strong in the movement that raise suspicion. Yeah. And I don't want to. I have no proof otherwise, and that's all I got to say. But I kind of get it, right? Because you're trying to bring in everybody to the fold you can, and you don't want to shoo anybody away because they see this. But like, I'm sure there's plenty of liberals out there. Like it was a long time. Like, I've always considered myself a liberal, right? I'll curse. I used to speak out against Harper, right? I'm not a Trudeau supporter. He's like, it's like the other side of the spectrum, right? It's like Nazis versus communists, right?
Well, there's
like
and I don't think that's
when you do the full circle, they all come to the same spot, right? Yeah. But I'm a liberal.
Like in the classic sense.
In the classic sense, yeah. Everybody
believing in free speech.
Amen. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's it. And I thought that it struck me as strange, but and further playing the game out it seems like if you find a very, very effective slogan, they'll say that's racist or that's sexist or that's somethingist in order to undermine and undercut your ability to use it. So I think that that's what we've found with the F Trudeau flags, and they don't like it because it conveys very effectively how unpopular he really is. And so, like, again, it's
if I could jump in there real quick though, but if you have kids there, right?
Sure.
Like I don't want people chanting.
But the whole thing isn't I don't want people chanting cuss words, but the whole thing isn't taking place. Like, there's a march. The whole thing isn't taking place in front of a school or a school board administration building.
People are taking their kids there though, right? Like
people are taking their kids where?
Out of school to go to this march.
Are they?
It's a part of
but still,
that's my brother-in-law said. He was quite upset. He was like, she's taking my kids. And I was like, well, they're your kids. That's a different conversation completely. But there's angry people.
Fair
there,
enough.
right?
Okay, so like your argument is that there will be kids present and the F Trudeau flag shouldn't be flying there. But I'm not necessarily just arguing about the F Trudeau flag, upside down Canada flag as well.
It distorts the message, right?
I guess so.
I kind of get his point. I
get his point. Right? I get his point. I understand.
But
I understand that it looks
another
bad.
Story, right?
Oh well, Twitter. I mean, whatever.
There's porn on
people
Twitter.
Can block me. Yeah, people can block me. I don't care about that.
Like,
it just struck me as odd, and it just struck me as so strange. And yes, like, of course I see his point, and I wouldn't show up with an F Trudeau flag. Like, that's not I wasn't asking so I could show up with an F Trudeau flag. I was asking for the people who don't see what you said. And I mean, I didn't understand that there were going to be kids there. For me, it was just a protest that was happening at a school board administration building, right? And I think that most adults, if they arrive with their F Trudeau flag and they've got it out holding it, and somebody says, hey, there's a kid who's, who can see that, can you put it down? I think most people would be okay with that, right?
I think people are so angry.
You think I'd be wrong on that?
So angry
Maybe.
right now.
Maybe
they'll be, and I get it, right?
Yeah,
but people are really angry right now.
No, I agree there. I agree.
Rightfully so. I don't deny them their anger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rightfully so. I'll shut up.
Maybe he's just afraid there won't be enough for everybody.
Yeah, all the F Trudeau flags will be there. Will be gone, sold out. Max, what do you think?
I think this is dumb for a couple reasons. One, that doesn't matter if you have flags, the media is still gonna hate you.
That's what I said.
And like two, it's just gonna alienate your like supporters.
That's
like,
what I thought.
Those are the only two things it's gonna do, and it's gonna harm you, and it's gonna harm Chris. Sorry, in like the long term. I don't see why this is like a good play, because the media is going to hate you no matter what you do.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And the moment you
well,
give
that's
an inch,
it. You
they
can't
will take a mile.
Yes, you can't try and placate. You can't try and give these people what they want, because what they want is your head on a pike. Like, and I'll take it bit by bit. You know what I mean? Like, but my thing is, it's a slippery slope. Like, now it's the Trudeau flag. What happens when it's the red hat? What happens when it's saying there are men and women? Don't say that.
I think if anybody should know about you giving them an inch, they take a mile, it should be Chris.
Yeah.
Like honestly, it should be Chris, considering how hard he fought for this.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's what I don't get about this whole like drama. And the thing is, this drama also hurts the freedom movement as a whole.
Yes.
That's all it serves to do.
I agree with that. And I thought it was strange. I agree with it so much. It's why I almost scrolled by and didn't ask, because I didn't want to know. And then I was like, I'm that guy though. I'm the guy who asks those stupid questions. And maybe it was dumb, but I mean, attacking me for it. He was like, you must have a head full of rocks for wanting to bring the flag to this protest, blah, 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 blah. And like, obviously my point wasn't, I want to bring that flag.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I hope that I mean, obviously it didn't come through. I guess I didn't communicate myself very clearly, but it's so funny to me how often people attack me when I'm trying to say, like, somebody who does not share common sense may show up with the fuck Trudeau flag, or somebody who wants to do you harm, now that you've said this, may show up with an F Trudeau flag. And so, like, you're going to lose your mind on me on Twitter for pointing out that saying this undermines your whole message, undermines the base of who you're communicating to.
Yeah.
It doesn't really do anything for anybody. And now you're blocking me because you're mad that I pointed this out. It just is so off. everything about it just feels like it's off. And the September 20th feels like it's off. It feels like like Ron was saying, like an operation. Feels like they're setting up a honey trap or something like that, where they're going to collect all this information, and then all of a sudden, you know, like either you're going to get in trouble from QP for not going, or you're going to get in trouble from somebody else for going, and it's just like, you know what I mean? Like, frustrating. Bill, thanks, Max.
That's how doxing works, right? But
yep.
In this case, like, okay, so we'll go to the Confederate flag for a minute. When I grew up in Alberta, there was a Confederate flag pretty much as soon as they dropped the front license plates up here, it was replaced with the stars and bars. Again, that wasn't about racism. It wasn't about this and that. It was about our disdain for the federal government and big government at all levels pushing down on the people as it were. So that became vilified. And I remember even talking to guys that I shoot with, and they're going, "Oh, the Confederate flag, it's all about racism, this and that." And I tell them, "No, it's not. You guys don't understand what you're talking about." Anyway, so give them a bit of a history primer. The F. Trudeau flags, it's the same thing. I don't know, and you know, again, might ruffle some feathers here, but I don't know any kid beyond 3 years old that hasn't heard an F-bomb or hasn't said an F-bomb. You know what I mean? Like
my daughter,
for that reaction, because they already know it. They go like, "Okay, we'll drop the F-bomb and watch mommy and daddy lose their minds," right? And it's just like a bad dog. I've got two of them. Anyways,
so I have to tell you, I don't swear in my house. Like I really don't.
I don't. I try not to.
I don't stay fiddlesticks, but it's almost to that level. Like you know, like Jeepers Creepers and that kind of stuff. So my kids pick that up, not swears. And then my son and daughter and wife were having a conversation, and somebody said something about the F word, and my daughter said, "I don't even know what the F word is," and my son was like, "It's fuck Olivia."
Yeah.
But, I was like, that's amazing.
But that's where it's at. So I mean, if somebody shows up at when a Billboard Chris's protest with an F Trudeau flag, Trudeau and that whole state-run garbage that we're in the middle of right now is the reason for him having to protest all of this stuff, because this transgender thing wouldn't be taking place if we were run by normal people, right?
Yes.
So
it wouldn't be tolerated.
Yeah. And so in essence, you know, I know if I was going to go to something along those lines, and I've got my old Canadian flag that'll fly upside down and that. I've got F Trudeau stuff all over my vehicles, like I said, and my helmet and this and that.
Yeah.
But if somebody were to come up to me and say, "Well, that's bad," I'd say, "This is why," and maybe you should explain to your kid that F Trudeau means that we're against communists, we're against these totalitarian principles. And yes, the verdict's strong, but we feel strongly about it, like Ron was saying that earlier.
Right, and speech is not a crime in Canada.
Yeah.
We want to express ourselves, and this is a very strong expression of our displeasure.
Absolutely.
I think that's rational, right?
Absolutely.
I think
for
that's
him
rational.
to be pushing back, again, it was the
and
same
blocking me.
Media a few years ago. You'd go to one of the things there, and the first thing Ezra would say is, "Oh well, you know, guys, don't do this, and don't."
Oh, I know, right?
Don't get in Global's face, because there was people, they were walking right up to the cameraman and almost bopping them. Right? It was fun to watch. But
you know, I heard, and I mean, like, I wouldn't do that. You know what I mean? But it's not my job to police that behavior on my show. Like, don't do anything illegal. I think it goes without saying. Don't do that. Don't intimidate people. Don't do crazy shit, man. Like, just be chill.
Yeah.
Common sense.
Yeah. And so, I mean, if you're, again, strongly voicing your opinion on something, he should be embracing that. Like,
I thought so too. If people are showing up to your protest, you should be saying, "Thank you very much for showing up to the protest." The F Trudeau flags are in that section. You know what I mean? Like, go over there where there are no kids or something. You have to deal with it because people are going to do it. Kenzie, thank you so much for waiting for so long. I feel like it's been a long time you've been waiting. What do you think?
Hi. I think you guys are all right about what you're saying regarding Chris's remarks. You know, don't bring the flags or whatever, and you're all right on your points. And the other thing is that what you just got to there, why can people not accept that it's individual responsibility? And we all know that 99% of the people who go there are like you guys, and, you know, can control their behavior, right?
Yep.
And as far as kids go, it's a parental responsibility. It's got nothing to do with anybody else.
Yes.
If you expect that there's going to be violence going on, you don't take your kids. That's
Common
That's what
sense.
parents do, right?
Yes, yes.
So I find it ridiculous, especially when it's something like the F Trudeau flag. Now your kid knows what that word means, so that's one thing. And then the other thing is, isn't that what the whole protest is about? That they're teaching our kids not the word, but what the word actually means. And here's pictures.
Yeah.
Pictures.
Well, and I mean, like Chris has been like crusading against this. You know what I mean? Like against
Exactly.
exactly what you're talking about. And it's just like it's so mind blowing. And it's like, Joe, we've got to really take care for the optics. And it's like, okay, you could block me. The optics of that look great.
Like I
It's
think it's
crazy.
so bad at these pride marches
Oh yeah.
that nothing is done about parents that bring their kids to watch naked men parade down the street.
Yes. Well, that's a strange. That's all of that is very strange. Nobody seems, law enforcement doesn't seem to care. There's naked people standing everywhere. This is obviously against the law, to the letter of the law. And people are worried about F Trudeau flags, upside down Canada
Exactly.
flags, if the swear word really bothers you. And the other part of this whole thing is the F Trudeau flag doesn't actually say the word because the U is a symbol. It's a, whatever. And so like that's a way around it as well, technically and all that. And I get it's a technicality, but like it is, well,
It's an important
political.
technicality. You know why? Because it means they're not willing to be that offensive.
They are trying to be respectful. You're
So,
exactly right. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. You're exactly right.
and
Unbelievable
apparently
stuff.
calling for peace doesn't help either.
Yeah, well,
Hong
I
Kong
said,
means Heil Hitler.
oh yeah, for sure, for sure. And I mean, I even said when I was asking him, I'm on your side here. I just can't see how you reconcile these two competing things. Like, yes, let's protest this tyrant, but only protest the way I want you to protest. Anybody who doesn't protest the way I want you to protest is an idiot with rocks in their head. I was like, really? Come on, like you're better than that. And I like that was the tweet, I think. But oh goodness me, what a wild thing. MC, and then we have to move on to like housing and food prices and the anti-hate network and all the rest of it. Holy smoke, MC.
It's gonna be a long day.
Yeah.
Well, Kenzie was bringing up like the commies won't even keep their clothes on in front of kids, and they're not going to restrain themselves from being violent in front of kids either.
Mm-hmm.
That like these guys that are planning these counter protests, they never do, right? And it's always someone who's hideously out of shape, usually, that's trying to slap someone down who's doesn't really defend themselves. But
wow.
Still, if you wheel out your kids there, like they'll see your kids standing there and they'll still go up and assault someone.
Yes. Yeah. It's,
I don't know what else to say about it.
It's scary stuff, man. It's wild. It is the just breakdown of common sense, the breakdown of shared societal norms is very concerning. I was talking about it on my show this morning as well. Okay, so housing, the liberals said we're going to fix this, and they're not going to fix this. This is not going to, yeah, they can't fix this. I showed on my show this morning the what's his name, one of the housing, he was a housing economist, and he said basically in order to reach the goals to restore 2004 levels of affordability, that we would need 3.5 million more units than are planned by 2030. And that's not going to happen. That's fantasy world. Like that's not going to happen. And so like in the absence of being able to build enough supply, you would think we would do everything we can to draw down demand by shutting down some immigration channels, students, anything like that. But I think that they're just going to increase it. Like there's no indication that solution came out of the London meeting, the London caucus meeting this past weekend, at all, right? So like we are going to hit 2030. We're going to be short 3.5 million units, and nothing. I mean, if you think nothing works in Canada now, just wait. Like nothing is going to work. And see, what do you think?
As I've been cruising around doing mysterious work, I've been listening to mainstream media and stuff, and I like nobody will mention immigration at all. They talk about housing crisis. I've heard tons of segments about, oh, this housing problem. Oh, it's so bad. How are we going to get enough housing? They won't even mention the word immigration. Not even callers are talking about immigration.
Really?
It's like they've been hypnotized to forget about it or something
Well,
like
they
that.
screen those calls. They screen those.
I've heard some conspiracy theorists get on, right?
Oh,
and actually on CO2 and everything too. You hear people bring that up when that becomes a topic, and the host says, "Oh no, but that's already been settled."
Really?
Right? We've settled that the humans are causing it, so we don't need to talk about that anymore. But with immigration, the word is not even on the table.
Wow.
It's
I hear what you're saying
scary.
there. Well, I'm glad to hear that there's people pushing back on the CO2 stuff, like pretty more publicly than they used to be, because it used to be a couple of years ago, I think people were really in the climate change thing. Although when they tried to declare that climate emergency in 2018, 2019, didn't go through, right? And that's why we got COVID, right? So people weren't hypnotized by it then either. People don't believe it, I don't think, not enough to change their behavior, the climate change thing. And that's good.
Well, that's why they've wheeled out all this other stuff. They tried that climate stuff for 20 years and it wasn't being effective. So let's do COVID.
Yeah.
And then all the stuff that's subsequent to that, right? Because we weren't allowing ourselves to be led into poverty, but just because of CO2.
Just because of this invisible gas and their say so bullshit. Yeah. But now that's that's all you need, buddy. And I mean, that's all you need for COVID. You know what I mean? Like, here's a test that we know has false positives and shouldn't be used for diagnostic purposes, and a mask that doesn't work to prevent viruses or anything like that. And if this test is positive, then you have to isolate for 2 weeks. Why? Because reasons. Your safety, right, comrade.
But all that false positive and stuff, right, it didn't get said. It just got whispered, and nobody, most people didn't hear it. And anybody
who said it got completely destroyed.
Well, except the CDC a few months ago. Right. And even after they said that, like, no media picked it up and said, hey, people, sorry about that. We messed up.
So the CDC publishing that is like the equivalent of publishing a retraction on the third page. Nobody's ever going to see it. Nobody's ever going to talk about it. It's just the thing that happened and didn't happen. And if you heard that safe and effective, then, sure, it's safe and effective. You know what I mean? That's honestly, people will. Yeah. That's its function. That's the purpose.
Yes.
Crazy, man. No.
Well, how is everyone doing today? We just went through a hurricane. And
cool. Okay, hold on. No. Can I stop you before the hurricane? I want to talk
about the hurricane.
Okay.
I'm talking about housing.
Housing. Okay. All right. Cool.
Right. But first, we're going to just quickly touch on carbon tax. I thought, because Nova Scotia was the most disproportionate province in the country that's getting hit by the worst taxes on carbon taxes, I thought that was to pay the hurricane center off, or at least the hurricanes off. Like, where is my money going?
Where indeed?
Why are we still getting these hurricanes, Mr. Gilbo?
Gotta pay protection.
And I thought this tax was to stop all this.
Yeah.
So are you not applying the tax rates appropriately, and are you not paying the appropriate channels? I don't understand. But now for housing, you want to talk about housing. Here in Nova Scotia, right, we've lost a lot of houses to some natural disasters in the last year. Well, there's a lot that's happened in that time, right? Say Fiona, say the wildfires, arson fires, in Shelburne and up near the Halifax there in Hammond Plains. So you have houses that already stood here. Why can't we get building permits to rebuild them?
Yep.
Is your new plan for the neighborhood?
I've read that a lot of people are having a hard time getting building permits approved for reconstruction.
And so then Nova Scotia turns around and they buy a hotel to house people in, that then those people can pay the Nova Scotia government rent.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking at buying trailers. No, why are you looking at buying this kind of stuff, spending this kind of money? And then you say, oh, well, these permits are going to take well over a year to or maybe longer. We don't know. We don't know what kind of neighborhood we want to build here now. Is it a smart neighborhood?
Crazy. And so like the whole neighborhood's gone and they're like stalling rebuilding.
Exactly. Right. And in the, you know, in the process too, that there's people that their houses didn't burn mysteriously somehow.
Were they blue?
Well, maybe they had blue siding or blue shingle. But then these people, well, they can't get services returned because they can't put the power back on because, you know, and they can't put the water back on. So now they're trying to tell these people that they got to move out of their perfectly good home.
Yeah. The water and the power might be plausible. But I mean, you should get that tied off. You should be able to go to the street and cauterize or put a cap on the water.
Right? Like, where's the hydrant?
Where's the hydrant? Yeah, where they have turn-off valves, right?
Exactly.
There's no turn-off valve in the city. We can't possibly restore anything.
We can't accommodate all. Now, and before we talk about the hurricane later on here, I do want to say this. Thursday, our gas was like 183. Friday, with the hurricane coming, it was 188, 189. And this morning, after the hurricane came and none of us have any power, gas is 192. Thank you, government.
Yep.
Why are you doing this to us? Why are you beating us down in this time? And I know why.
Well, Trudeau hates
I'd really like to hear it. Right?
It's terrible, man.
Well, Nova Scotia, we voted Conservative federal, our federal party in. And ever since then, we haven't been properly paid out for Fiona. We haven't been properly paid out for any of the floods in July. We've had a lot of these arson fires, and that's not going nowhere.
Yep.
And you can't get any building permits. It just seems like we're really being punished. We got 2 carbon taxes, right, added on top of us. Apparently, I've heard our gas here is upwards of maybe 40 cents more than possibly, Calgary area. I just want to know why.
Yep.
Yeah, it's 138 where I live. Yeah, it's south of Lethbridge.
Right.
Crazy.
191 just went through a hurricane. 192 just went through a hurricane.
We're 170 in Ontario. So it's crazy, man.
I know. I left Ontario, my bad.
Yeah.
But you know what? Other than the hurricanes, so much better out here if you just don't pay attention to
the hurricanes,
the government, and the gas price.
Fair enough. Okay. Thanks, Noel. Kenzie, I just realized it's 2:00, so we gotta speed up. But sorry, Kenzie, go ahead. Nope. Where are you?
It's so difficult when you guys keep covering the housing. And then there was something else you referred to as well. But really, what it is that I was noticing that all our exports have gone down.
Yes. Well, the India trip just got flubbed as well. And so there was a whole free trade. There was a whole free trade. Sorry, we keep talking over each other. Apologies. You go.
I'm having a hard time keeping track here. So exports are down. Resource development is down. Resource production is down. Immigration is up. Taxes are up. All prices are up, especially the most necessary ones. So we all know it, but the best way to do it is carbon tax, right? Get rid of the carbon tax. So why are we not all because at the moment people are talking about there's no short-term fix. Permits would help, but there's no short-term fix. And there kind of is actually, and that's get rid of the carbon tax. So why do we keep going off on these tangents and not just focus right in there on the carbon tax?
Another good point. It's an excellent point. It would be a very good rallying, just like that's exactly the fulcrum of the problem currently. Yeah. You're not wrong.
I think it is. Yeah.
We should abolish all of the taxes and then get rid of the government as well. That would be perfect.
Well, can I just say as well about that one? Because I think about that quite a lot. Why can't we have them cancel all the positions that were created since the beginning of the pandemic or 2019 or whatever date seems appropriate, right? Because that would take out all one. It really shouldn't be there.
Yeah. Well, Venezuela is a similar job situation where it's something like 1 in 4 people work for the government, right? And so that's very high. I think it's even higher than that in Venezuela. But the more we do that, the more we hire people to be paid by taxes and more on the government payroll, the worse our economy feels, the worse our economy is. It's bad. And like,
well, you're not producing anything.
It's just a way to prop it up. You know what I mean? It's it's shifting money around. They're paper pushers.
Yeah.
They don't exactly. The crux of the problem is we're not making anything, and it's not good for Canada. It's not good for anybody. And bringing people in while in this stagnant state gets us further behind by standing still, right? And we don't have the option of actually doing anything because the government will stop us. They'll call it white supremacy or something like that. Alt-right. It's crazy. Thank you, Kenzie. MC.
Yeah, Noel asked why the government would want to own and rent out residences and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I know why. It's so that they can evict you when they feel like it.
Yes.
Yeah, they have control over you. That's
yeah.
I know why. I'm just asking everybody else. We all know why, right?
It's like, well, maybe they'll just give them to TD Bank or Scotia Bank or something like that, and then they can centralize the kicking you totally out of society.
Yes, well, they are.
Maybe the bank will send you a tent as a parting gift. Or...
Savage. Yeah, man.
I know a couple of beaches that you can play marooned on. Because you've now just been marooned by your freaking country.
Really, eh? Jeepers creepers. I think I'd go to Mykonos. I mean, if I'm going to be on a beach somewhere, it might as well be nice. Like a beach in January doesn't sound fun. Bill.
Yeah, like going back to the whole COVID thing and everything else too. You darn tootin', like the climate change thing, it fizzled out because people weren't buying it again, like Noel said. You can tax and tax and tax, and yet all this stuff still going on because it's the weather. On the COVID thing, remember that Chinese revolution over in Hong Kong? They were losing control of that. And there was that CIA whistleblower that came out, was it last week or the week before, basically said that was one of the main reasons why that they did that, was they were probably, the Chinese communists were probably just mere months away from losing total control of Hong Kong. And then the rest of the dominoes would have probably started falling. And so we got to lock everybody down. And I remember even late 2019 watching videos, and Levant, to his credit, was over there looking at the Uyghur stuff. Yep. And he was seeing that well before we even got it. And then in March, we started getting it, and then boom, right?
Yep. So, yeah. Interesting. The idea of China collapsing, communist China collapsing, or the communists losing control of China, I've heard that a couple of times, but more in the context of China attacking Taiwan and taking over, and the agreement between the US currently and China with, if it's a political thing, then, you know, what's the US to say?
The US, I don't think, I mean, they've got the technological might, they've got the weaponry. I don't know that they have the same heart. There's a lot of people that came back from, like, even our veterans, like Jeremy McKenzie and a lot of these other guys, and guys that I shoot with, and guys that I know, that they looked at the 20-year, you know, Afghan wars and the Iraqi wars and all this other garbage. They're totally disenchanted with anything that the powers that be want them to go and die for.
Yep.
And now, you know, war in Taiwan, they're going to say, well, yeah, all our microchips come from there, but you know what? Maybe Trump's right. We should be making them at home.
Yep. Well, and Vivek WEF Ramaswamy says the same thing.
Oh, Ramaswamy. There's another one.
I say, yeah, no, I know.
He's repurposing Obama's speech.
Obama, I know. It's the same thing, man. He
like,
surged, and then they were like, this is Obama.
Yeah. Liking this guy? I mean, they're all a bunch of crooks, but.
Yep. No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Okay, Noel, can you tell us quickly about the hurricane? And then I got to go because I got a haircut. So how did riding out the hurricane, Max and Noel? You guys were telling us in the green room, and I thought it'd be interesting. So you guys had a barn party, right, Noel?
Well, okay, so basically I learned a lot, right? The East Coasters, and I'm sorry for the rest of you on anywhere else that you are, they're a different breed of people, right? And they know what hurricanes come, and they prepare and all the rest, right? And coming from Ontario, I'm being honest here, right? we were through Fiona last year. We've done Lee. We own property, and we done Dorian. So we got a couple underneath the belt, but it wasn't until this year that you really got into the meat of how people are, and it's community. Like I'm talking about, like I live across the street from a marina. I seen the docks. They were above the height of the land, and it was just the meniscus of the water holding it back from spilling all over.
Wow.
And like the waves, like our breakwater, it's like I don't know, it's like 300 feet long, and the waves coming over it were 50 feet crashing in the air.
Wow.
And like to see the amount of 30-degree or 30-foot waves sustained, pounding the shore for hours. Yeah. It really shows you the immense power of Mother Nature.
Yeah, for real.
Here we are in a community, and for a month we planned this surprise party that was supposed to happen on September 16th, and we're like, we're not letting this go. Yeah. We got the barn all set up. It's got the lights. It has the power system, and then we lost power. And like, what do we do? So everybody down here owns more than one generator.
Oh yeah, so, okay, cool.
So a couple extra generators were donated for the night. We knew our gas station would have power tomorrow, so a couple of cans of gas got donated, and we made this party happen. There was about 50 of us,
nice,
all night long, and it was singing, it was dancing, it was good times, all while the trees were dancing like they were on acid. It's like they were dancing like they were big giants.
Yeah, crazy, man.
It was so amazing to see, but so scary at the same time, because you go outside and it's a freaking hurricane.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, for real.
And we're right on the coast, and like you can, like everything this morning is covered in salt, like dried salt. Like even the windows on the back of my house.
Really?
Right, and we're across the street.
You have to wash it off.
Everything's covered. Right, like this dried salt crystals, because there's so much spray in the air.
That's crazy. Like, do you have to watch? Is that like after the hurricane?
We'll have to wash all that.
You have to wash it off. That's crazy, dude.
Oh yeah, like it'll be a big cleanup,
yeah?
Right? And like down here, it looks like somebody just threw lettuce everywhere. It's all the leaves of the trees and all the branches. It just looks like lettuce.
Wow.
Everywhere.
Wow, that's crazy.
You know, a lot of big trees came down. There's reasons why we don't have power. Like we got trees all tangled up in lines and stuff like that. There's a willow around the corner, and she's just all twisted right up into the lines. It's bad. But you know, it's going to take some days. Yeah. And we've been on a boil water advisory now for 6 weeks. So you know,
why? That's before Lee. Why? Like
that was before Lee. That was when we had the big flood that happened in late July. The water treatment plant got struck by lightning 6 times.
Oh yeah, that's what you said the other week.
Took out the chlorinator and a whole bunch of apparently precious little instruments that do it all electronically and, you know, wirelessly and all that kind of stuff. So apparently it was expensive for them, and they still haven't fixed it. So I think it's going to be really expensive.
Yeah,
but yeah, we're dealing with that. But you know, it was really nice to see the neighborhood come together and just have a surprise birthday party. It went
in the middle of a hurricane.
People out here, it's not like Ontario where you usually, you know, you go to a big barn party and you're going to have kegs. So we know somebody that owns a brewery, Hell Bay Brewery.
Yeah.
Right. They supplied us with some kegs and some keg machines. So and then all these people, they've never had this before, right? Nice. It's not normal in their culture down here to have kegs. And it's not because of COVID. It's just because you can't go to the brewer's retail and buy a keg here. You got to go to a bar or a brewery, and so it's not really available.
Oh, so a keg party
everybody
is not
was
a thing
walking their dogs like on Saturday.
Oh,
I saw like everybody walking their dog because it was only really windy, but it was like warm. It was
like in the hurricane, they were walking their dogs.
Yeah.
Nice. Wow, there you go. That's what happens in Nova Scotia.
All of our officials are saying go home and don't go wave watching, and you can't tell a Nova Scotian they can't go wave.
Yeah, I was gonna say that'd be half the fun, man. If it was safe to be outside.
Tried to get to one of the beaches, but we just couldn't because like the waves were just coming over the road.
Oh yeah.
So,
Oh man.
so
Well, that's not. See, that doesn't
so
seem safe.
yeah, they had the road blocked off.
Yeah.
There's places like that, right? And you know, like down in Western Head, their causeway, it has 2 levels of these big, huge concrete blocks, and the top level toppled right over it.
Oh man.
Like,
Wow.
like there's lots of damage down here, right?
Crazy,
and it's going to be a lot of cleanup.
Yeah.
But the thing is everybody here we're all in it together for a community, and we get it.
Cool.
And some of the best Canadianness, the best idea of explaining Canadian. And we had met like a couple of weeks ago, a German tourist that was here, and she came up and sat at our table, just freak chance, when we were out on a Friday night, and we were out with some neighbors. And what's the Canadian thing you do? You say welcome, right? And anyways, we've become friends with her, and we've taken her around and shown her a lot of Canadian things. And she's out in Newfoundland right now, experiencing this hurricane right now.
Yeah, cool.
That's what you got to do. You have to just do the most Canadian thing. That's what you are. Every single one of us are a Canadian, and you have to do those Canadian things. And what's a Canadian thing? Well, it's not sitting in your bed underneath your covers, worried about some hurricane.
Well, it sounds like a lot more fun anyway to have a barn party during a hurricane.
I think now this is going to be a staple thing. Like this is we're
doing the hurricane party. Yeah, that'd be good, man. So, I gotta move on. Max, do you have anything to add?
Not really.
All right, that's cool, man. MC, you had your hand up.
Yeah. To me, the funniest thing that happened this week was India. And ladies and gentlemen, I solved the case. Here's what happened.
All right.
The government of India said, let's give Trudeau a second chance, except with an Indian accent. And so they phoned him up and said, hey, Justin, could you provide drugs for the G20? And Justin said, yes, everyone will love me. I'll bring the drugs, no problem. So he showed up, and they looked, and they were like, weed again? Justin, like, you're a jerk. You could have at least made us some hashish or something, right? But he didn't. And so
Higher
they
quality,
dissed him, right? Well, that's why Joe Biden was in his face, right? He was like, I don't want your weed, little man. Like,
come on, man.
My brain's already screwed. I need something 10 times stronger than that. And so then he was, sad because they dissed him, and he's like, okay, but he learned his lesson, right? So he went on a shopping trip. And then, so just when the plane's getting ready to leave, he has to go to his staff and say, you guys have to get all these elephant statues and ceramic Taj Mahals out of the cargo hold. I need room for my heroin. And then they just finished loading up the plane. The government of India comes along to check it out. And they're like, what? You gave us weed and you have all this heroin? You were holding out on
Insulting,
us.
Right? Insulting.
Yeah. And they're like, this is jail time, man. And he's like, well, I can just give you some money, right? Like, we're not taking any of those Canadian dollars, right? So the aircraft technician with the special part actually had a 3-piece suit on and a briefcase, and the special part was the stack of American dollars, so that Justin could get out of the country. He was like the guy at the party who's annoying everyone, and then he won't leave. And India's fight, like, can we get you a cab or something? Like, you gotta
get him the presidential plane. Just get him out of here. I don't care what. Just get him out of here.
I'm getting tired. I want to go to bed, please.
Yeah. That's the worst, man. I've had situations where I'm driving people home.
Adrenochrome for him.
All right, wonderful. Well, I think we'll leave it there. There's so much going on. We only covered a small fraction of it. We didn't talk about the vaccine push. We didn't talk about the Russell Brand targeting. We didn't talk about the anti-hate or hate-gate, really.
So much.
Oh man, it's okay though. We'll get there. We'll talk about it again next week.
Don't get your vaccine. Don't get your vaccine.
Don't do that. It's a bad idea. I don't even know why we're still calling it a vaccine, but regardless, there's so much going on. And like I was saying at the beginning of the show, it just seems like it's hard to keep up because the news changes so fast, and disseminating it, talking about it, because that's how we process things, by talking about it with people. It takes time. You know what I mean? And so I try not to rush. I try and examine things as much as we can. So it was lots of fun. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks for being here, everybody on the panel. And for those watching, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.